Why, hello, and thank you for choosing the Vegan Luna podcast. If you came here to listen to influencers, business owners, people that are really making a change in this world and really creating some amazing ideas and amazing inventions, then you came to the right show. This show showcases some of the top people in the world that are making an impact, whether it's the environment, whether it's for health, or whether it's for the animals. This podcast is also available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Stitcher, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. All right. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have someone from the other side of the world in Australia. Her name is Tosh Peterson. She often goes by Vegan Booty. You might have seen her running around on the field or speaking out or sharing a lot of stuff to help animal rights within the world. So what I want to ask you before we jump right into the podcast is a couple quick questions, all right, to get people a chance to know you a little bit better. So my first question is, what was it like running onto a field before a football match with 35,000 people watching?
It was a very exciting and surreal experience. I hadn't actually been into that stadium before. And the moment I walked in, just seeing that massive crowd was, just made me feel very anxious. And I was fortunate enough to get a front seat where I was able to figure out a plan how to get over this massive fence and make the jump and actually get out onto the field. And I guess just that moment of when I was putting my leg around the fence, making eye-to-eye contact with a security guard that was on that oval, who was quite startled. And I thought at that moment, okay, I'm just going to get caught, but just jump and run. And from that moment, I just don't really remember much until 20 seconds in to the run. I was thinking, how am I still on this field? Like, there's no security near me. I just kept running and everyone's looking at me thinking, what is going on? And I got another good 20 seconds of running until one of the players actually stopped me and the security guards took me off. So it was a very surreal experience, and I've always been quite a thrill seeker, so I really enjoyed it overall.
And so what were you carrying on the field?
So I was carrying a flag that said "Right to Rescue." And the reason for that was because my friends were having a court case just a couple of days after I did that stunt, because they'd actually rescued a bobby calf from a local dairy farm. So it was to bring light to the absurdity of prosecuting innocent people who are trying to expose animal cruelty and actually take animals out of this place of violence.
Yeah, for sure. And so what were some of the repercussions that you received from doing that?
Well, I was arrested and charged with trespass. So I was held in custody for a while, and I've just recently had my court case for that. So luckily I was just given a spent conviction. Obviously the reason in doing that stunt is to receive the media attention. So it received a mass amount of media attention and everyone was talking about it, and it was really bringing light to the right to rescue message as well as just animal liberation in general. So it was a massive impact that this one stunt made.
And something some people forget about the right to rescue is the right to rescue isn't just for like farmed animals. Some people think it's just farmed animals. It's all animals. So if you love dogs, or if you love cats, or if you love some of these other animals that we're more accustomed to having around us, it also means the right to rescue them from harm and from bodily harm and from abuse. So if a dog or a cat is in an abusive situation or a situation where they're suffering or they're in pain, we want the right to rescue that dog because they're going to die. And so if you don't want a dog to die, then you should support the right to rescue. And I think that's something that some people do not talk about or forget sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Obviously everyone agrees with helping a dog from a place of abuse and violence, but when it comes to farmed animals, everyone's against it, but really there is no difference at all. Every
Yeah, for
animal
sure.
deserves the right to.
Even if you think there's a difference, you still should support the right to rescue, because that's dog and cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So my next question is, why do you think direct action, nonviolent direct action, is so important in creating social change?
I think it's an essential aspect of achieving animal liberation because, firstly, most forms of direct action do get that media attention. Therefore, the animal rights message is received by a mass audience. And I think that's so important to spread this message as far and wide as we can. And the media has a huge impact in being able to spread that message for us, despite the fact that they do often twist the message and they may come out in a negative way. It doesn't matter because people are still engaging and getting that animal rights message, and they can go out and educate themselves and understand further why we are actually doing this. So I think civil disobedience has played a huge impact, even in history, which has shown that direct action is an essential aspect of creating that social change. And we can see that from past things such as the civil rights movement and women's rights. And I think it's exactly the same with animal rights. We do need to be going out and taking that direct action for the animals to, get the public speaking about it.
And you're also seeing a lot of direct action right now with the protest going worldwide. So at the time of recording this, we have the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests surrounding that pretty much going off worldwide. And you're seeing nonviolent direct action in the majority of the cases. I mean, yeah, there are those, 1 or 2% or whatever of the violent or the looting or the stuff that's not productive. But there are massive signs of the direct action being effective and making, changes, and policy changes are already happening, and convictions are happening, and, they're changing budget structures and stuff like that. So change is happening because of that direct action that you speak about. And most of the things in our history, in human history, at least recent, pretty much recent human history, you can see a lot of that direct action making social change for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more.
All right, so my next question is, how do you deal with online hate?
That is something that, fortunate enough, it just doesn't bother me as much as it would to some other people. So I guess in that sense, I just look into the positive side of it. And obviously it's hard to see a positive side when you're literally getting a death threat from someone, or someone telling you to kill yourself and that sort of thing. Those are the kind of messages that I receive quite often. However, all these negative responses from the public or just online hate and bullying is only a sign that what I'm doing is having an impact. And obviously it's triggering people, and social change has never been comfortable. So when people are being confronted by an animal rights activist or a vegan telling them that they are contributing to animal abuse and suffering, they're going to initially react with aggression and opposition to vegans. And so that's just kind of a normal and natural response from people. But the important thing is they've now received that animal rights message, and they're more likely to go vegan down the track in the future. And that's already been proven through my own experiences of receiving online hate from people, and then even just hours later they've scrolled through my profile and taken back everything they've said and apologized and actually said, you know what, I think you're totally right. I've just watched a million. I'm terribly sorry for what I said. I want to go vegan now. So just knowing that it's having a positive impact gets me through no matter how much hate I'm receiving. And I do try and take the time to actually respond to everyone. Even if I am getting a threat or a very abusive message, I think it's important to actually take that time and respond to them with compassion and make them understand that you're a human like them, and what you're doing is just for these animals who are suffering, and try and get some education in. And a lot of the time it will end up being quite a positive conversation. So that's really how I deal with that sort of online abuse.
Yeah, and if there's a couple things I like to add too. Another thing to think about, that I like to share with people is think about what do like most people that hate really, really want from a vegan? Like what does a hater really, really want the most? In my opinion, what a hater wants the most is not for you to die or for you to be harmed. They just want you to shut up, right? They want you to shut up and just not talk about it ever again and never make them feel guilty. That's what they really want, right? So if that's what a hater really wants, then the best thing that we can do is give them, the worst thing that we could do is give them what they want, right? Because if we give them what they want, right, which is you shut up, then who loses? The animals lose, because the animals don't have someone standing up for them. And we're severely outnumbered with people fighting for animals, right? And people trying to kill animals, right? So what's important is that knowing what the haters want and not feeding into that, okay, is basically shutting up, right? And so the other thing I think to remember is perspective, right? So let's say you are having a horrible time and someone is treating you really, really bad and you're receiving a lot of hate, whether you brought it onto yourself or not, however it's coming into you, right? No matter what we're really going through, like when it comes to hate and online hate or bullying or whatever, it's nothing at all in comparison to what the animals are going through every single day, right? We can decide to turn that off. We could say, you know what? I'm not going to look at this thing today. I'm not going to look at that thing today. An animal can't shut it off. They can't, you know what? I'm not going to live in this cage today. I'm not going to be abused today. I'm not going to get killed today. They can't make that choice, so we're blessed and we're lucky and we have the opportunity to make that choice, to like put the phone down or stop looking at it or ignore it. Or we also have the ability to choose, how we react to it. And the animals just don't have that. So putting it into perspective, what the a very challenging activist goes through, is still nothing, that we go through compared to what they're going through. So I think that helps a lot, is having that perspective and reminding yourself, of that.
Exactly, yeah, just always focusing on the victims. And unfortunately, a lot of vegans themselves do forget to focus on the victims. I mean, I even receive hateful messages from vegans saying, you're doing this all wrong, you're giving us a bad image, this is not how you do it. But they're only focusing on the reputation of vegans and forgetting the fact that we're doing this is for the animals and we're trying to do whatever we can for that way. And not everyone does have to agree with each other on their forms of activism, so long as obviously it's focusing on the animals, it is peaceful. I think that's the important thing, that we should support each other even if we may not agree with certain forms of activism.
Yeah, and there's two places that most haters come from. They often come from like the place of ignorance, where they just don't know. They don't really know the truth. They haven't heard about it or they haven't learned about it, and then that could be an opportunity for discussion, right? As far as helping them, because we were all in that same place. Or like almost every single vegan was in that same place that they were. I was a little shithead when I was a kid. You know what I mean? If someone was trying to talk about animal rights when I was, their age, I'd probably like, maybe do the same thing or say the same thing. But on the flip side is that, especially like on TikTok or whatever, those guys are so young. And so they have that chance to be influenced. They have that chance to be impacted, at a younger age, which is something that, I didn't have. When I grew up, I didn't have any social medias or any internet or anything like that. So there was no way to connect or learn this kind of stuff. I just learned what my parents taught me and what school taught me. And they sure as hell weren't going against the norm. They were doing, what everybody else is doing. All right. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am a lifeguard and swim teacher. I'm based here in Perth, Western Australia, and I've basically grown up here my entire life, just living the beach life and the outdoor sort of thing. From a very young age, I was very connected to nature, and I spent a lot of time just travelling Western Australia in particular. I had a huge passion for marine life. I basically just grew up in the ocean, surfing and snorkeling. I remember I'd just do absolutely anything to go and swim with dolphins. I'd swim out like kilometres to go and swim with them. So I was a very avid kind of nature lover. and outdoor lover in general. And my childhood dream was to become a marine biologist. So in that sense of things, I've always been very connected to the animals. I just never really made that connection with who I was actually eating until I was 23 years old. So just over 3 years ago now is when I made that decision to go vegan. And I do have a degree in outdoor recreation as well. So I kind of furthered my passion for the outdoors and the environment by studying a degree in that sort of area and being able to do all the outdoorsy, like thrill-seeking stuff, as I mentioned earlier. All the rock climbing and surfing has definitely been a massive part of my life. And I've managed to do a lot of travel around the world as well. Once I finished my university degree, 3 years afterwards, each year I just do a massive trip between 3 to 5 months. So I've travelled to 35 countries in total. So I have a massive passion for travelling as well. And for about 30 of those countries, I was a vegan at the time. And I thought that was going to be very difficult, particularly when I went to South America. However, I was very overwhelmed with the abundance of vegan options there. In fact, I could easily say that the vegan cafes and restaurants over there are superior to here in Australia, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So yeah, that's a bit about my sort of background.
Yeah, the food in like some of those tropical areas like South America, or like I traveled to Bali. I'm sure you've probably been to Bali as well because it's closer, right?
Yeah, I've been about 14 times.
Yeah, I imagine, especially for Australia. And so places like those, you have so much fresh produce and fruits and vegetables, and so this stuff is so much more fresher, and the importing and stuff like that is so minimal, whereas in Australia you probably have a lot of maybe imported foods and stuff like that because it's a lot harder to grow stuff there versus some of those tropical climate areas. And so you'll start to see that difference. And so often those places, in order to make a lot of the vegan substitutes, you have to substitute a lot more oil or a little bit more processed kind of foods, and you start following more that the Western diet, where like it might be vegan, but it's vegan burgers and vegan hot dogs, and vegan, nachos and fries and stuff like that. And so that's what often happens in some of those parts of the US too. There's parts of the US that are like that as well, whereas like they're kind of like food deserts where like there just isn't a lot of produce there. And so they rely more on some of those junk food kind of things. So some of the places like in Australia, you have the, what's that one, the fast food place with like, it was like something Jack's. It's like the Burger King, but for.
Oh yeah. Hungry Jack's.
Jack's. Like that one has like a vegan burger. Like in the US they have Carl's Jr., which has like the Beyond Burger. And so with that one, that's one that's like in a lot of different places. So people in a small town might only have that as an option, like as like the vegan option is like the junk food, is the only option. Cause it's processed, it's easy to travel, versus like having a really fresh, like Buddha bowl or something that's so much harder to get.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right, cool. So tell me a little bit more about your story of why you went vegan. What made you decide to do that? Because can be a very tough thing in this type of world that we live in.
Yeah, so I feel like I did go vegan overnight, but there were a couple of sort of little signs in my life that started maybe 1 month before I did go vegan. This was in 2017. In January, I caught up with an old friend and she told me that she was vegan, and she just sort of focused on talking about all the health benefits. So it didn't really sink in much with me. And I actually didn't even know what vegan was at the time. I knew it was something similar to vegetarianism, but I actually had no idea. So I recall going home and actually doing a Google search, what is vegan, and reading how it's the complete removal of all animal products from your diet and your lifestyle. And I remember just clicking exit and thinking, oh gosh, that's overwhelming. I could never do that. And I guess sort of thinking about the health benefits that my friend had brought up sort of sunk in a little bit. I remember I did question, oh, do I need to have chicken in my salad or do I need to have eggs? And I sort of naturally reduced a little bit just because I was starting to question my health and the health of animal products. But it wasn't until, as I said, 1 month later where I decided to watch the documentary Food Choices on Netflix. And I guess because that covered the health, the animals and the environment, I had this overall view of what a plant-based diet was, and obviously it gave me more of an insight that veganism is for the animals, and that's when I really did make that connection. And I knew from that moment that I was going to be vegan forever. The next day I just went out and bought all my new vegan produce and became passionate very, very quickly. Initially, it was actually I was more focused on the environment. As I mentioned earlier, from a child, I was very, very environmentally conscious. So I think that initially connected with me more because I wasn't fully aware of the inherent animal cruelty in these industries. So I would post online like, watch Cowspiracy and this is the reality here. And then the more research I did, the more aware I became of the animal rights message. And that's when my passion really, really thrived. And I just became active in any way possible. I had no idea about organisations like Anonymous for the Voiceless at that point in time. So my own form of activism was just talking about it in conversations and posting online. And I also decided to start my own animal rights brand, which is called V-Gan, and because I wanted to wear that message on me, and I just couldn't really find anything online that really had that powerful message that I wanted. So that's why I did create that brand. And then I ended up going traveling for a little bit. And then when I came back, that's when I discovered that animal rights organisations existed. And that's when my activism really started to sort of thrive, when I got involved with Anonymous for the Voiceless and the Save movement. Yeah.
And so what do you feel like are some of the benefits, maybe health-wise, that you received like after switching? Did you notice anything?
Yeah, I noticed huge health benefits. I've always been very health conscious, so I was already eating what I thought was a very healthy diet. And I mean, yeah, it was besides the animal products, but I was always eating fruit and veggies. Yeah, I still felt this massive positive impact in my health. I became a lot leaner. I was already at a healthy weight, but I just couldn't believe just how my body and even my face changed, because I was losing a lot of body fat. And even my fitness, as I already mentioned, I am very like fitness focused and that sort of thing. So just noticing my physical performance as well was absolutely amazing. And I was feeling these results within like the first week of going vegan. And then I discovered Dr. Michael McGregor and other kind of plant-based doctors, and became very passionate in the side of eating a whole food plant-based diet and learning the science behind, the health benefits of this diet.
Can you describe some like increased performance that you noticed?
So for example, as I mentioned earlier, I have been a surfer since I was a child. So surfing is a very, very fitness focused sport. And unfortunately here in Perth, there's not that much surf. So sometimes I'll go a while without surfing. And so, for example, I'll travel over to Indonesia, and I will feel absolutely wrecked after a surf. Like, it is so, so exhausting. However, noticing that difference from when I've gone vegan, I feel like I don't even lose any fitness at all. Even if I go like months and months without surfing, getting back out there is just so much easier than what it was before. Even if I'm spending hours out in massive big waves, just paddling for hours constantly, it's just actually amazing how you're able to hold your fitness and feel that increase in strength and overall performance as well.
Yeah, I felt the same thing too. I remember when like I was playing basketball, and I used to play basketball and I would get so tired, right? Like before I'd be like, I'm so tired. And like, I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. You know, like I'll sit this one out or whatever. I'll sit the next game out. And I remember after I went vegan, I didn't do any exercise or nothing. I hadn't even really done anything physical for a while. And I went to play basketball for like the first time in a while. And I remember how I didn't get tired. And I played like 7 games back to back to back. And I remember thinking like, I haven't even been running or exercising or nothing. I just noticed that stamina and the recovery was very quick. And I can only associate it to like, based on what I learned through the nutrition and the science and, you know, learning that sort of stuff, is that the oxygen is just flowing so much better. My veins aren't clogged up with cholesterol and saturated fat. And so the oxygen is getting to the parts where it needs to recover. It's getting to your muscles. It's getting, you know, to all your cells. And so it's feeding them what they need. And so that's really what increases the stamina and the recovery. And most athletes will tell you that that's, if you can increase that, like that changes the game. That changes everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely incredible what this diet can do to the body. Yeah.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you do for activism, some of the ways that you're active for the animals and how you're speaking up for them.
So as I briefly touched on earlier, I initially started my activism through getting involved with the Anonymous for the Voiceless and the Save movement. However, when Direct Action Everywhere was started here in Perth in 2018, I became quite heavily involved in that area, and I'm now an organiser for DXE here in Perth because I just am overwhelmed with the impact that it's made, and it's definitely my personal style of activism as well. I do like that confrontation and doing the direct action. I think that's kind of like my forte. So yeah, since becoming involved in DXE, I have gone out and done my own personal type of direct action that hasn't actually been involved with DXE, but obviously a very similar style. So last year I entered local supermarkets on numerous occasions, and I would always dress in some kind of costume. So my first time I dressed in a cow onesie, and I was holding a sign that just stated some facts about the dairy industry, and that impact itself was quite cool because it only took about 10 minutes to go into the supermarket and get some footage, and then suddenly that video was going around the world because it got noticed by the media and that sort of thing. So it was really cool, and that inspired me to keep continuing thinking of all these different creative ideas because I do love that creativity, and then just seeing the impact of that alone, just wearing a cow onesie was absolutely amazing. So last year on Christmas Eve, I had come up with an idea to dress as a slaughterhouse worker. And again, I entered the supermarket, so I had the fake blood drenched down my costume, and I was holding a fake pig's head which had been cut off, and I held a sign saying Coles, tell them the truth. So Coles is just the supermarket name, and I think it's really important to focus on these big companies and demand for the truth because it reels in the consumers, and they're wondering why are they asking for the truth? What are these industries hiding from us? And when I did that action, I also played the sounds of animals screaming inside slaughterhouses. So not only did it have that visual impact, but hearing those screams just blasting through the supermarkets was very, very eerie and impactful. And I was astounded by the impact that made. The videos just went viral and went across the globe, really. So that was quite amazing. Unfortunately, I'm now banned from those supermarkets for my protests, but that's not going to deter me. I've just found other ways around it. So it was actually last week, I did an action that was quite similar. I dressed up as a pig slaughterhouse worker who was selling human meat. And again, using that creativity to get that media attention and get people engaged with what is going on here. And I thought that was quite impactful because the reason I was selling human meat was to put humans in the victim's position and make them realize that there's no such thing as humane meat. There's no such thing as ethical meat, and all these marketing tactics like free range is just all these lies. So I think it's really important to make that connection so consumers realize that they are being lied to, and make them question their food choices and make them educate themselves and see what is actually going on in these industries. And what I've found with these actions, it has resulted in hundreds and hundreds of messages from people. And yes, as we mentioned earlier, most of it is hate, but that's just showing that this is really having a positive impact overall. And despite the hate messages, I've received plenty of messages from people thanking me, saying, I've watched Dominion now, I want to go vegan. So yeah, I think direct action is a really, really effective way of getting that message out there.
It also takes from like the person receiving the message, and like, let's say someone being influenced by the message, it takes a lot of courage for them to even say, hey, you know what, I was wrong. Like I was wrong before, and now I see the truth. And that's going to be a few that are going to do that. But how many people make the changes without even saying anything? I bet you that there's so many more like closet vegans, like vegans in the closet that like just aren't saying anything, that are pretty much either all the way vegan or nearly all the way there. They just aren't saying anything because they fear the backlash, or they fear the negative judgment, or they fear those things. And those are normal. It's the same reason like any other type of person is like in the closet, or somebody else doesn't want to share the truth. It's because they want to be accepted. Everyone wants to be socially accepted. And so it can be very challenging when all of a sudden you're not accepted in your own social groups, like they're like, they close up, and so that can be definitely one of the challenges.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you, why in those actions that you described, you didn't do it with direct action? Why were they more solo? And also, why did you do it kind of, it seemed like solo, like it was just you. Why didn't you have like a group of people?
I guess because I wasn't an organizer of DXC at the time. So even though I was sort of involved, I just kind of was talking with a friend, and we came up with the idea of the cow onesie together, and thought, it was just very like last minute sort of thing. We were just hanging out and just went to the supermarkets and did the filming. So I guess it was like a little bit more difficult to really organize a massive group. So we just kind of thought, yeah, let's just go out and do it, without any idea of the impact that it was going to make. And then when we realized that the media just loves it when they're seeing this one person randomly present in the supermarkets doing this unusual thing, I think it actually becomes more engaging. And it was just sort of easier to do as like a solo action with my friend filming me. However, some of those actions that I did have inspired some people to go in and do the group actions, which is really awesome. However, I still haven't quite seen, like, I can see the difference in the impact. And for some reason, I think the individual person, the media just really loves, and everyone just seems to engage in a lot more, I guess, because people are like, wow, there's one person that's doing this really unusual thing. That's quite brave, and that's very unusual. So I think in itself, it does have more of an impact being an individual doing that type of action.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So is there anything else that you say that you do outside of that for animals?
Yeah, so I've recently jumped on board with the TikTok craze. And again, I'm so overwhelmed by the impact that that's had. And that's sort of inspired me to continue using that, but also start up a YouTube. And I guess over this period in time, because of COVID, I have done more sort of online forms of activism. So yeah, I'm really on board with TikTok at the moment. I think I've clocked up over 5 million views in the past month on my videos. So that's quite amazing. And the audience, as we mentioned earlier, are the young children and teenagers. And I think it's so important to target our future generations with that message. They're not as conditioned, they're more open to change. And I'm already seeing that through my TikTok videos, because I'm getting messages almost daily from young kids and teenagers thanking me for exposing them to the truth, and they're asking me questions about veganism. So that's actually, quite amazing. It's a really, really good platform, because I guess on our Facebook and Instagram, when we post that animal rights content, sometimes it feels like it's almost pointless because we've lost all our Carnist followers. We just feel like we're sort of preaching to the converted. However, TikTok's different because our posts are actually getting out to that mass audience of people who aren't following you, and most of them are non-vegans. So it's a really, really effective way of activism, and that's sort of what I've been focusing on a lot recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's ever been a time in history where we could directly communicate with our youth at that age on a massive scale, like ever. Even if you look at like the app that was before that was for like the kids, like the one that was just before TikTok, around that age was Snapchat. But the difference is Snapchat is it's all individual based. It's all kind of one-on-one. It's I add you, you add me. You don't see too much content of random people, and have influence. And it's also not messaging based. So it's not real communicative. There are messages, of course, on Snapchat, but it's not really designed for that. Whereas TikTok is very heavily designed to encourage comments, to encourage engagement, to encourage interactions. And so you have this unique kind of time of this kind of app coming out, and this also connectivity to kids that like almost seems like how can you have this much access to talk to kids? It's kind of interesting as well. But also you have this situation where the whole world is kind of shut down and everybody is on their phones even more, on the internet even more. So you have almost this perfect storm of this influx into this app. And also it's the most addictive app I think there is right now as far as social platforms. And because the algorithm is so fine-tuned, that it can really put in front of your eyes things that you're really interested in. And it does a really good job at knowing that based on how long you've watched something, and based on your likes and based on the hashtags. It's unlike any of the other algorithms that I've seen as far as putting, things that do interest you, because I think it really does a good job at counting like how much time you spend watching something. And it knows, hey, let's do that again, and again and again, because you don't go to people's profiles, the videos just come to you.
Exactly.
So, but also the other thing I was saying to one of my other friends who wanted to start up, and I was like, you got to think about this is video editing isn't going away. Video editing is only increasing. TikTok teaches you how to edit videos. Because it is a video editing platform. It's really a video editing software that's also a social media. So it has this kind of interesting blend where you can have all this creativity, unlike any other app. There is no app out there that is this big that also allows you to be so creative, and really to do anything that you want. Some people say, oh, it's just for dancing, or oh, it's just for lip sync or music. Yeah, there's that, but there's everything under the sun on TikTok. You can find every single piece of content, every single niche, everything's there. The question is who's gonna control those niches? You know what I mean? If you're the fitness, guru of veganism, like, are you gonna be the number one on TikTok? Like whoever is on YouTube, like, or not? Like it's all up for grabs right now. For like kind of like the people that are cemented in, like, let's say YouTube, that are like the leaders in YouTube, like they're kind of there for a little while. It's going to take some time, right, to kind of like catch up to them. But the TikTok, it can happen so fast that it's very unpredictable.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a very, very impactful and amazing platform.
Who inspired you to join TikTok? Was it someone you watched, someone that said something?
I think just an influencer that I follow on Instagram. She's not vegan or anything, but I remember she just posted how one of her videos went viral on TikTok, and I'd never heard of it. And that's when I decided to make an account and see what is this all about. And initially, I didn't think much of it. I didn't quite understand it. I made a few videos and they got, a few hundred views, and I didn't really use it much after that. That was probably near the end of last year. However, when Hudson Tarlo came he actually came here for an AV workshop. So I got to meet him at the end of February this year. And that's when he was saying, yeah, I use TikTok. I've got, something like 10 million views in the past month. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Maybe I do need to start using this platform. And that's when I sort of really started to kick off and use it more. So yeah, Hudson definitely inspired me to use it and make me sort of understand, okay, this is actually a really, really amazing platform.
Nice.
We need to use it for the animal rights message 100%.
What kind of tips would you give to someone maybe starting out? Maybe they're an activist and they're starting out on TikTok. What advice would you give to them?
I think a lot of people are sort of afraid to show their face on the camera and make content. So I'd say try and get over that fear and speak out for the animals, because you'll find that it really does have that massive impact. And just talk, like, you only need to make 10 to 15-second videos. You don't have to put a huge amount of effort into it. Obviously, it's great if you're willing to do so, because the more effort you put in, the more views and impact you will make. But just start off like quite easy, just posting short videos talking about animal rights, kind of find your own niche and that sort of thing. And you can also, what I found effective is just posting like rescue stories or just videos inside the facilities that other people I follow have taken, even Dominion footage. Obviously, you need to be really careful and not show graphic footage, because you will get shadow banned, but you can still show that footage that isn't graphic and telling the animal stories. So with me, I've just sort of tried a few different things here and there. I've added in a few little videos that aren't really to do with animal rights as well. Like, I do like dancing and being a bit crazy as well. So I sort of trialed that out and added my, like, kind of created that personality. I think that's what everyone really likes to watch. And I think that's why my TikTok has sort of started to grow quite rapidly, because people are not only interested in the animal rights message, they're just seeing this personality and thinking, because I've posted my supermarket actions in there as well, so that attracts a lot of attention. And so yeah, it's sort of just creating your own niche within animal rights and veganism. I mean, there's a lot of vegans on there that obviously focus more on the food, and that really blows up too. So, and then even for people like Hudson, he's obviously really good with his outreach and the way he talks, and that's why he's got a lot of views as well. So I guess just sticking with your own creativity and your own personality is going to help you with that.
Yeah, and also the advice I give to new people joining on a TikTok and new vegans is really start watching and following and engaging with other vegans, engage on their content, reply to some of the comments, also try to watch what they're doing and what they're saying, use some of the similar sounds. Like if they're using a certain sound, you can use maybe that sound. Some of the best videos that I had was like somebody's idea, and I kind of put my own personality, my own twist on it. And sometimes those really go well because it might be a trend. It might be a popular song that someone really likes, and they happen to say, be just looking at that song and different videos of that song, and they see yours with that song, and it happens to be, about animals, and it might make an impact on them. So I find, a good help is to really engage with the community that you have there, and try to find out, build your community. Also, I think that in the beginning, it really helps to understand the app a little bit more and understand kind of how it works and how to reply to comments and some of those things. But honestly, one of the biggest help, like even if you're listening right now and you're like, I don't want to show my face, I don't want to post on TikTok, but I'm just kind of tired of talking to no one, because if I post on Facebook and Instagram and I get 1 like or 2 likes or no non-vegan sees it and I just get, comments from vegans, if you're kind of tired of that and you're in that space, go to TikTok and help other vegans in the comments. Because one of the biggest things is I'm not even that big, and I can't get to all my comments. Like, it's literally impossible. And so the biggest thing that you could do to help is actually just replying to comments and helping people. There's people right now, I guarantee in your comments, and I guarantee in my comments, there's people right now asking for help. Hey, I want to go vegan, help me. And there's no one there to answer. because there's too much to go through and we can't find it. So that's something to really think about is if you don't want to post anything, go and help us. We need help in the comments. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. The comments are really, really insane because, yeah, I'll just wake up every morning to a notification about, 1,000 or so comments on my videos. So it really is impossible to get back to everyone. And yeah, I agree. We do need that help. We need more vegans on the platform. Even if you aren't going to actively make your own videos, that's cool. Just jump on our profiles and help people out. Yeah.
Some of the most valuable and most important people, like right now on my entire TikTok, are the people that don't post any videos and they just are commenting all the time in my comments. Sometimes I'll be reading the comments and it'll be like 4, 5, 6 different conversations going back and forth, because they're helping. And so those are really like the big unsung heroes, because they don't realize not only are you helping someone potentially learn, right, but you're also building the comments and you're building up the views. So you're putting that in front of more people's eyes. And so that's seriously one of the best things that you could do. If you're just scrolling on Facebook right now, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on Twitter, and you want to be active and you want to be engaging, go to TikTok and help out other vegans. Like, I swear, that's one of the biggest things that you could do to help.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. So is there anything else that maybe you want to add that you didn't talk about that you really want to share with everyone?
I think we've summarized just about everything that I've wanted to cover, really. And I do hope this has inspired people to become more active and maybe reconsider joining Direct Action Everywhere, because I know it is controversial and a lot of people are fearful of doing it for whatever reason, because maybe they don't want to do that confrontational sort of style of activism, and maybe it isn't your thing, but DXE still does have a place for everyone, and you don't have to participate in those types of actions, because DXE still does more kind of lower level actions as well that you can get involved in. But yeah, I hope maybe this has changed your perspective on DXE, because I think it really plays an essential part in the animal rights movement. And even though obviously things like Anonymous for the Voiceless and the Save movement and other forms of activism are all fantastic, I think nothing really has that impact that direct action style of activism does have. So yeah, I hope this has changed your mind about that, and to just give it a go yourself. And I really encourage you to do so. I remember feeling a little bit concerned myself when I went to my first Direct Action Everywhere protest, because they'd just done one beforehand. They went into a steakhouse and did a protest, and I remember thinking, no, that's not right at all. And I may not necessarily agree with that particular protest, but I've realised that overall we do need to do civil disobedience and unjust law breaking to actually get that media attention, so animal rights is put into public dialogue.
And then you could also, if you do try it, and let's say it isn't for you, you're like, you know what, I tried it, I gave it a go. At least you can give your feedback on why it didn't work out for you. You know, you can say, I tried it. One of my biggest kind of things that kind of bothers me when someone says, I don't like that, I don't want to do it, I don't agree with it, and I'm not even willing to try it. That's where it's kind of like, it's kind of a little bit of a problem, you know, especially if it's becoming a complaint or becoming, public, right? That's when I think that those are the things that we need to do a better job at, is at least trying things. Same with veganism, you know what I mean? Even just trying vegan, like at least try it, give it a go, try it for 22 days. And see what happens. If you try it and you give it a go, you might realize that you like it. And at least you can say, you know what, I tried it. These are the things that I did. And if you say it didn't work out for you after that point, like at least you could say you tried it and you gave it a shot. That's so much better than someone that's saying, I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. It's always worth trying things out, because you'll be surprised most of the time.
You just never know. You never know till you try.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, where can people find you? If people are like, oh my gosh, I really want to follow your story. I like what you're doing. I like that style of activism. I want to learn more from you. Where are the places people can find you?
Best places to find me is probably on my Instagram and TikTok. So I go by the name of Vegan Booty on both of those platforms. There's just no E in the vegan, so it's VGAN and then Booty after that. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook, Tash Peterson.
Yeah. And TikTok is the same?
Yeah, TikTok is the Vegan Booty. Yeah.
And YouTube?
Vegan Booty as well, or just Tash Peterson, I think will come up in the search. All
right, excellent. Well, I am so thankful to have you join the show and share all your wisdom with everyone. And so as soon as this one is ready, it'll be available on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, pretty much everywhere you can find podcast. And then it's also going to be on YouTube as well after it's ready for the audio.
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. This is my first one, and I really, really enjoyed speaking with you and listening to your story as well.
Yeah, after you do this first one, it'll inspire you to create your own. That's what happened to me.
Yeah,
I was invited onto someone's podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do that.
Yeah, it's a really brilliant idea to do. Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Please, please, please make sure that you guys share this with anyone that you think will find this interesting, and also make sure that you guys are subscribed, because I can see a lot of you guys are listening, but you aren't subscribed. So please subscribe, and also don't forget to go to my website where you can leave comments and see more content at veganluna.com.